Welcome to another episode of Comedy Wham Presents with me, your host Valerie, and sometime kitty co-hosts Ms. Purrington and Mookie. ComedyWham.com is your place to go for features about all Austin comedy. In addition to podcasts, Comedy Wham brings you articles, album reviews, our advice column, Rochelle Takes on Comedy, our festivals page listing upcoming festivals across the country and the world, and more. We're best known for our events page for live comedy shows in Austin, Houston, and DFW, where 100% of the entries you see come from comics and producers. If you want your show featured on the calendar, click the Submit a Show button from the top of the homepage or events page to complete the short survey. It's free and easy. Tag us on your Instagram stories and we'll share your show promo to our Instagram followers. Want to support these resources we provide? You can donate to Comedy Wham on PayPal, Venmo, or even Patreon. Click the Support CW icon on our homepage to see the ways you can help us. Now back to our podcast. Launched in 2016, the Podcast Project brings you funny people and their stories. As a fan, I like to delve into a comic's background and motivations, and will usually take a detour along the way. Consider the interview a way for you to get to know the folks that make the Austin comedy scene one of the best in the country. If you like this podcast, please rate and review us. Today, we're talking to a former inner-city school teacher who gave it all up for comedy. Now she tours all over the country making people laugh after getting her start in Chicago. She's been on Ari Shaffir's Skeptic Tank, on Skankfest Festival, and just about every other podcast and festival around. And she just released her debut album, or not just, but this past summer, she released her debut album, Unbelievable. And now Comedy Wham presents our guest, Amy Shanker.
Hi.
Welcome.
That was nice. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. How are you?
I'm good. I have a little cold, so my voice sounds a little off, but other than that, pretty good. Yeah.
Good. Well, I wanted to, I was kind of baiting you a little bit because I gave you my cell number in case, you needed to reach me outside of, we've just been messaging on Instagram. And I thought I'd get some kind of reaction because, did you recognize my area code?
I didn't know. I looked at it. I was like, be there. Because I was worried about being late. So I was like, okay. No, wait, what is it?
It's 312.
Oh, you're Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah, so I thought, okay, we're going to talk about Chicago.
That's so funny. No, I didn't even look at the note. I was like, okay.
I'm like, okay, maybe I don't know, maybe she didn't read it.
The only Jewish person bad with numbers, I think, now.
So I do have an official icebreaker question, and then we can go into Chicago.
Okay.
All right, one word to describe your past.
Ugh. Fuck. That's not the word. Oh shit. This is so embarrassing because I was an English teacher, so I should know words. Not like dynamic, but like, what's the word for like lots of different experiences? Let's go with busy. It's busy.
It's your word. So one of my favorite things ever is just to sit here on this side asking the question and just watch. Like some comics are like, blah, word right off the cuff. And then it's my favorite thing to watch somebody's, like the wheels turn, trying to find the perfect word.
Yeah, I bet I think of one when I leave. Or if I just yell out a random word, that'll be what this is for, what that meant. Yeah. Huh. That's a good question.
Yeah. It's literally an icebreaker. It
is.
Your mental thing running.
Yeah. Fragmented, that's more, I guess.
Yeah.
Just lots of different pathways.
Yeah. Okay.
But good fragments. Mm-hmm. Most of them.
Did you grow up in Chicago?
No. Mm-mm. I grew up in Kansas City. And I went to the University of Kansas through my first master's degree, and then I moved to Chicago and started teaching.
So yeah, you're a smarty. You've got a master's degree.
Yeah, I got 2.
2?
Yeah, what a waste of time. Don't use either of them.
Oh, man.
One's for secondary English education, the other's to become like a principal and administration degree if I wanted.
Yeah.
Because I thought I would want to get out of teaching at some point, but maybe stay in education. And as that turned out, that was not the path.
Yeah.
Yeah, because education's horrible in our country.
Yeah, and I mean it's public out there when you Google your name that it was in inner city schools, which on top of just the challenging.
Oh yeah, west side of Chicago. That's where I taught, and I taught high school the whole time. And for the last probably 8 years of my career, I taught mainly seniors the whole time. So it was definitely different from growing up in Kansas City to moving to the west side of Chicago.
Yeah,
was challenging.
A little bit of a culture shock too.
Yeah, a little bit. I think I was one of the few white people in the school, but it didn't really. I guess that part didn't really make much of a difference. It was more just like the culture shock was like, because the school that I went to growing up was a very good public school, and that's what I was kind of used to. And then going into the inner city of Chicago, it was like, oh, they don't have shit. Like, they need much more help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you grew up, were you around comedy in any way?
Only if you include being Jewish, it's like kind of like bred in us, I think.
Yeah.
Every Jewish person just thinks they're funny, and the older they get, the funnier they think they are.
Yeah.
And so, I didn't grow up around formal comedy. I just grew up around,
Funny people.
My family just, our love language is kind of just ripping on it, making fun of each other. And that doesn't translate as well with Christians in the South, I've learned. They're very sensitive. But I feel like if I'm not making fun of you, it's probably because I'm like, get the fuck away from me. But like, otherwise, if I'm like, oh, just goofing around, I probably like you. But people are like, you're mean. I'm like, oh, shit. Sorry.
All right. Well, maybe by the end, you'll be making fun of me, and that'll be my sign that, okay, I passed the Amy test.
Maybe. Gosh.
Although I'm super sensitive, so just do Amy light.
Yeah, I know. I've been working on it, but I can't spend. If I talk to my family, it all just comes right back.
Yeah.
But yeah. What was the question?
Oh, it was like growing up. Was there was comedy present?
Oh, comedy. Yeah. I mean, it sounds bad now, but my dad used to, like, when we would go on longer drives, we would listen to like Bill Cosby's stuff, and he loved it because it's hilarious, his stuff about like families and his own dad and growing up is my dad just loved it. I remember he like used to, when my mom would go out of town, he would make us like chocolate cake for breakfast. Just because of that, we'd like dance around the kitchen like, Dad is great. He makes us chocolate cake like that. But like, yeah, I guess that would be my exposure, like that type of comic, the cleaner comic that we later found out was horrible.
So what was it that drew you to the teaching profession?
Oh, honestly, nothing. I was drawn more towards the field of like English, like writing and books and stuff like that. I just really like to read, which is also my dad's fault. Because in the summers he would take us to the library and make us check out like a book for every week of the summer. So we had to check out like 12 books and read all of them and do reports on them, because he was like, I'm not raising stupid kids. So, and reading is writing, the more you read, the better of a writer you are. And so, like, it was just kind of, that area was ingrained in me from a very young age. And then, I've always worked with kids, like as either like a camp counselor or just a after school, like whatever, for kids that are just like, if their parents are at work and they just need to stay late.
Yeah.
Or I babysit all of that stuff. And so it was just kind of a natural progression, I think. And then in college, I worked at this group home for delinquent teenage boys whose alternative was like juvie. And so I started kind of working with troubled kids like around the age of like 19 or 20 probably. And then discovered that it was just, they just needed so much more help because they had a lot less, they just didn't have as many resources to, to help them. And so that was kind of like my dive into wanting to work more with like inner city kids, people that didn't really have, as much. Because when I was growing up, I really didn't need my teachers that much. If I ever needed help, I had the adults that I could go to that I trusted, and a lot of kids don't. And so I think it was more that than wanting to be in education, but also like I was a junior, like second semester, and still hadn't declared a major. And my my counselor was like, dude. So she goes, you can either do with your credits, you can either do journalism or education. And I was like, journalism. And she was like, we'll do education.
Wait, what?
So I was like, no, all right. She's like, there's less money in journalism. I was like, shit.
Because there's a lot of money in education.
Yeah, there's none in either, I guess, unless you're like the top in journalism. But it's like, not, so that's how I got into education. And then I guess I stayed through so that was like 5 years. I went to college, but came out 5.5, maybe, came out with a master's, and then moved to Chicago, started teaching. And day one, I was like, I fucked up. Like, I don't want to be here at all.
Oh, wow.
And I stayed at that school for 4 years. And then the next school I stayed in for about 9. So, both inner city and both fun. Like, I liked working with the kids, but I hated, in my second school, I hated dealing with the administration because they were just really corrupt.
Oof.
And horrible. One of my principal was arrested for fraud and embezzlement.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so,
Illinois.
it's
It's
crazy.
a long tradition.
Oh, she did a lot. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. I don't even know if she's been to trial yet.
Wow.
It's crazy. Yeah, she got taken out of the school by cops. It was so Chicago.
That is so Chicago.
Yeah.
Why do you think that if on the very first day you knew or you felt like you had screwed up, why do you think you stuck with it for 13 years?
Oh, really good question. I was like, I'll do this for like 5 or 6 and see, and maybe it'll be okay, because I'd just gone through, so much school, and was like, what a waste of time and money to not put this degree to use. And so that was the reason for staying at least for a little while. And then by the time that I was like, I really want to try to find something else, every few years I would like look through like what else I could do and apply to jobs in like the adult world or something.
Yeah.
And just would never get any response because everyone's like, well, you work with kids, you're a teacher. And I'm like, yeah, but the skills I have are much more than anyone that you're hiring to do this position, because teaching, especially where I taught, like, and having that ability to have classroom control and talk to anyone, because you, as a teacher, you're talking with kids, but you're also meeting with parents, you're meeting with admin, you're meeting with the board at times, other teachers. So like your experience really is kind of with every single type of person that you could meet, I guess, within education or like surrounding education. And so, but people would be like, no, you work with kids.
Oh,
and I'm
wow.
like, oh God. So I really just couldn't find anything else. I didn't really have any direction for what I wanted to do, honestly. And then found comedy in like year 10 or 11 of teaching.
Tell me about how you found comedy.
I gave a speech at my brother's wedding, and I was like, God, there were like 17 speeches, and I was the last one. My uncle was asleep. He slept through mine also. And then But everyone, when I was done, they're like, do more, do more. I'm like, oh, that's all. Like, that's all I have. And they're like, you're in the wrong field. Like, you should be speech writing, or you should be like on TV or writing a show, or you should be doing comedy. Like, you shouldn't be teaching anymore. And so I was like, yeah, maybe, because it's kind of written all over my face how much I didn't like my job. And so I went back to Chicago, and I did a mic for like, a 5-minute little thing. And then that was about it. I did it, and then I was like, okay, I tried. And then like a few weeks later, I was like, maybe I'll do it again, and I kept going like that for about 6 months. And then I was like, if I'm going to do it, I should just do it and see. And so I just like jumped in full throttle and was going to mics every night. And then within like probably 6-7 months, I was past it, Laugh Factory in Chicago.
Oh, wow. That's quick.
Yeah, very quick. But the thing about it is like, I know that I seemed very new to comedy, but I wasn't new to like being on a stage and being in front of people. And so like having that stage presence and being able to control a crowd was just not an issue. Yeah, exactly. It was very much a parallel experience. And so it was just like, all I had to do really was start figuring out how to write jokes. And then it kind of flew from there.
Yeah.
And in Chicago, I rose up, pretty fast. And then quit teaching, moved to Brooklyn. And I was there for about, I guess, 8 years, 7.5, 8 years. And then I came here. From there, my apartment in New York, this is such a long story. My apartment in New York got like, when I was on the road, it flooded, and it was like a basement apartment. Oof. And so, and then it got like black mold in it, because of the flooding. And I was like gone for like a month. And then my landlords just did not at all care, and they just stopped responding, stopped doing anything. So like,
oh my God,
which is so highly illegal. Yeah. And then I think one of the guys made a mistake, because he goes, yeah, there is mold. We sent somebody out to check. And I had already done testing on my own through like an Amazon kit, because I was like waking up with headaches, and then I started getting like bloody noses and stuff. Oh, and I was like, what's happening? Because it only was happening in my Brooklyn apartment. And so I was like, this is like worrying, And
was it visible to you?
No, it wasn't at all.
Gosh.
And it was like mold spores in the air. And so this test, it was like, it was all these like little petri dishes. And it was like the directions were to just leave it open for an hour, and then put the covers on, and then wait and see if any mold grows. And so that's what I did, put the covers on. I was gone for a week, came back, and they were just like overflowing with black mold, like all these different kinds. And then my landlord ignored me, and the whole building moved out, actually. So, because it was so bad in the entire building. Yeah.
Wow.
And then they just put it right up for rent again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So putting the slumlord concept out front and center.
100%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That I'll have to show you a picture of the place before.
Yes, I am so curious. Yes.
Yeah, oh man, it was bad. And so that brought me here, because the housing market in New York is insane right now. And I just was like, there's no way I can find a spot. Mm-hmm. And so I'm here in Austin for at least a little while, and it's fun,
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go back in time, and I'm going to pick and choose a few things. All right. So when between your first open mic, mm-hmm. it took you 6 months to kind of do the full commitment.
Yeah.
What was going on in your brain for those 6 months where you were just doing it a little bit, kind of testing the waters?
Yeah.
What was pulling you back, or what was... Yeah, just tell what was going on in your mind.
Because it just didn't seem like a viable career option.
Even though you'd seen, just for all intents and purposes, you'd seen somebody like, a Bill Cosby who, was playing in your car on rides.
But to me, Bill Cosby is an actor. And so like he had his own sitcom and stuff like that.
Sure.
And so it's like the comics that I was aware of were just like larger than life. And so it just didn't seem reachable or attainable, I guess. And,
Yeah.
and I really just did not realize that there was such a scene for comedy in Chicago because as a teacher, you know, I was waking up at 6:30 in the morning, going to work, and then by like 10 at night, you're exhausted.
Yeah.
And so I just wasn't like, I guess, out in that type of environment that much. I would go out on weekends with my friends and then that was it. But like when I started to realize like how much of a scene there was and like how broad it was and like how much room there was for different personalities and accepting of different types of people, I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I was also like in the middle of like a pretty severe depression, I think, and I didn't really understand it because I'd never been diagnosed before. But like when I was sitting there and listening to other comics like do their like stuff at mics and it shows and talk about the feelings that they were having and how it relates to their depression, I was like, oh, I'm depressed. Like that's what this shit is. Like and so I just felt more of like a community with them than I had felt with a lot of other people, and that made me want to, you know, keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because comedy does change your entire life, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a weird way.
Chicago is so well known for its sketch and improv scenes. Did you dabble in any of those?
I did, yeah. I tried like Second City classes with with improv, and I just didn't like it.
Oh, interesting.
I hated it actually because I don't know. I like more control over what I'm gonna be doing on stage,
Yeah.
and I didn't. I think I wanted more attention too, and so I was like, this isn't for me. Like I want to be a one man person up here. I don't want other people taking credit for my jokes. Like, this is all mine. Yeah.
Hey, you got to know yourself.
Yeah, 100%. I'm like, I'm not a sharer. So, yeah, that includes the stage, I guess. At a point, yeah.
Okay. And then what was it when you were you know, getting past at the factory and you know, you said 4 years in Chicago after that point?
No, about two and a half, maybe 2.5.
Okay. So what motivated you to move to New York, and did you consider LA? Because by then you probably knew LA or New York for
Yeah. I was
next
debating
step.
between the two. I chose New York because stand-up, I think, is stronger in New York than LA, personally. And I think it's a little bit more edgy and raw. And you get, I mean, just hands down, at least 3 times the amount of stage time probably that you would get in LA.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge draw. I visited both cities a few times and just kind of felt more at home in New York. I also had some friends moving there, so I moved with them, and it was just a bit easier. I moved with Josh Johnson, if you know him.
Yeah, I've actually interviewed him.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? He's so sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we lived together for like 3 years
Oh my gosh.
probably in New York, and Jeff Sheen. So, yeah, we were just all, you know, one big family. We get in bickering little arguments once in a while.
Well, you know, roommates, that's what
Oh, yeah.
that's what you do.
Yeah, it was a very interesting group.
Yeah. So with such a strong writing background that you've had, did you feel pulled into like the writing part that I think New York offers, where you're writing for shows? Mm-hmm. Did you get pulled into that at all? Is
Oh,
that
yeah.
something?
I would love to write on a show, honestly. I would love to have my own show. I would love to do late night, like any of that stuff. It's just like a little bit more stability for, you know, for this field,
Sure.
which is just an insane
Yeah.
field. But with that, yeah, I mean, I've written pilots and I have, you know, a couple just episodes from other TV shows, but I've also developed like a podcast that I am going to be hopefully doing something with in the near future to make it a little bit bigger, which I'm excited for. And then just yeah, I guess, I don't know, being able to work with the creative people that I get to work with every day, and like developing and talking with them, and just thinking of more and more ideas for like shows and or even sketches. It's the most fun. So
Yeah.
yeah, ideally my life would be like writing for TV and then doing stand up at night, I think. But it would be my show, you know.
Yeah, because we've established you don't share.
I'll share, but I don't like. But like, I want to be a star. Like that. Yeah.
I finally I can't believe that I've missed seeing you perform as long as I have, because you've been in Austin a couple of years now.
Yeah, I was splitting my time between Austin and New York pretty evenly, and then when my apartment got mold, like I was like,
Yeah.
I'll just be down here and I'll travel from here. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I finally got to see you at a Sure Thing show, and your comedy, like it all lines up what you were saying about, your family and
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, the Jewish sense of humor and ribbing each other definitely came through in what I saw. So I assume that it was never a departure from who you were as a person,
Right.
what you brought to a stage.
Yeah, I feel like it's important to be you on stage because, developing a character, it's fun and everything. And I think that's awesome. But it's also like anyone can do that and be that character, but nobody can be you. And so it's like people might steal a joke or whatever from you, but they're not going to deliver it the way you deliver it. They're not going to have the passion behind it, probably because they didn't write it, and so I just feel like being your most authentic self on stage gives you an advantage, because who else can do that, and
Right.
so I am, but I'm also, because I started later, I'm pretty comfortable with who I am as a person, and I didn't have to really find out who I was through stand-up. Like I pretty much was pretty solidified in who I was as a person, so.
Yeah, you actually read my mind about the next thing I was going to ask about. You didn't start as a, 18, 19-year-old
Right.
kid.
It's like, let me tell you about life. You're like,
exactly.
oh, God.
You don't know anything,
Please
kid.
don't. You don't know it. I hated that. I hated that so much when I first started, because I was like much older than a lot. I was probably had 10 years on the people at least that were just starting.
Yeah.
And it was like, you guys don't understand how jobs work. And you're like, you're 18, dude. You just got hired at McDonald's. Like, calm down.
Are you the type of personality that like you'll tell them, calm down, or you seem like you are?
Yeah, I do. I shouldn't, but I do. And I know that, and I'm trying to not, but I'm also like, ugh. I don't, it's always the dudes, it's never the women.
I was going to say, yeah.
It's always guys that come up, they're like, and it's like, it'll be like a open micer that's been doing it for a year and a half. They're like, hey, good job up there, but here's some tags. You're like, I'm good, bro. Trust me, it's okay. Thank you, though. Thank you so much.
What do you think? How do you think you grew by starting to perform in New York?
Oh, New York's a whole different animal than Chicago, really than any scene I've ever been in, or spent time in. New York doesn't, they have a hang, but it's much later at night, because people are going from spot to spot to spot. And so everyone is just running and running, and it kind of puts that hustle in you that, like, in Chicago, I didn't have as much because people like to hang out after they did their first or second show, and then we would just all chill. But, like, in New York, you're either going to another show to do a spot, or you're supporting a friend, or you need to put in FaceTime in a club. And so it's always, like, very much a little bit more business oriented, I think, than any other scene that I'm used to, because everyone that's there is there because they want to be rising to the top, My writing changed a lot there too, because when I started going there, I was just like getting to know the scene. So I was doing mics and getting to know other comics. But mics in New York, probably the longest mic I've done is 3 minutes. And if it's super busy, they cut it to like a minute and a half. And so
Wow.
like you're getting up there and you're either just reviewing premises or tags, but it's like
Yeah.
really hard to get the full thing out. And so my writing got a lot more concise, and like the fat was trimmed for most of my jokes, and it was just more like boom, 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 boom. And I like that because it was hard to get used to, but it did teach me how to write, I think, much more effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 5-minute mics are too long because people just get so long-winded about ideas, and it's like, this isn't a joke anymore. This is just you
Talking.
like meandering through
Yeah.
a thought in your mind that's not,
Right.
and I do that too, but I try not to, I guess. But it's, for a newer comic, hard to figure out what's the joke and what's just talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so New York kind of teaches you how to trim the fat and go, because if you don't, you're not getting booked, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a friend that moved from Austin to New York, and I'm sure this is very accurate because they told me this, but they said in a single night they knew of people that would hit up 6 to 7 shows, 6 to 7 mics.
Yeah, the most, I guess, amount of shows I've had in New York in one night has been 6. Wow. But in Austin, I had 7.
Well, yeah, this conversation happened before the pandemic.
Right.
And Austin
Yeah.
was a very different scene before the pandemic.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I started coming down here during the pandemic when New York was, very shut down.
Yeah.
But yeah, Austin has a lot to offer comedic-wise, like spot-wise too. But the comedy is different in Austin than it is in New York, for sure, But yeah, I think that you can get just as much stage time, if not more, here in Austin. It's just a different experience, though.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're going to talk about what drew you to Austin, but I do want to do this card game,
Oh, yeah.
like my little intermission. So these are open-ended questions, and the way this is going to work is you're going to point to the card that you want me to read to you, and then the other one you're going to read to me to answer first.
Okay.
So the one you want me to read to you is
This one.
this one. Okay. All right. So read that one to
I read
me.
this one. It's what if you just found out this whole thing was a fraud and I can't read? You're like, oh no, I just made something up.
I would question who you got your master's degree from, because if you got to that stage.
Bad. Yeah. Okay. This says, I'm pretty sure this says, it says, I'll never forget being bullied by.
Oh my gosh. I have the scar to prove it, actually. Virgil Wilson.
What a dick.
4th grade. This is how long I've been hanging on to this. 4th grade. Worst class. My teacher was Mrs. Ellis, who was a bitch. She should not have been a teacher.
I didn't like my 4th grade teacher either,
Really?
Ms. Ziner.
Oh, man, you remember her name, too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so Mrs. Ellis, she looked the other way. And I was a good kid. I was a really good kid. Not a troublemaker at all. I don't know. He sat behind me, and he'd annoy the shit out of me. And he was a bully to a lot of people. So it wasn't one of those things, like, looking back, you think,
Where they're like,
he had
he
a
has a
crush.
crush.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, because he bullied a lot of people. Now the only thing that I think about in retrospect is, man, what was going on at home for this kid? Because he really needed assistance.
Yeah, that's very accurate.
Yeah.
I've never met a parent and been confused about the child's behavior ever
Yeah.
in 13 years.
Yeah. So one day, class was letting out, and I don't know what was up his ass, but he kicked the shit out of my shin. My shin. And I have the scar left from it.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was he like in steel-toed shoes?
Yeah, I don't know what he was wearing, but that was just
What'd
the
you
worst.
do?
I don't remember doing anything, but of course I wasn't going to remember anything. All I'm going to remember is that he kicked the shit out of me, and I still have the scar.
That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't, I was never, I was one of those people all through school where I would, I blend in. I'm not a, hey, I'm in with the jocks, I'm with the nerds, I just blended into whatever scene because I'm a observer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know what he had on me other than it was, he sat right behind me and
Did he have like older brothers that hated your older brothers or something?
I don't think so. Oh, I
Wow.
guess that's possible. I do have a half brother who 7 years older than me. So fourth grade, he would have been, junior or as dumb as he was. He was probably held back as a sophomore, maybe because he was a troublemaker.
Oh, was
I was
he?
the goody two shoes to all the trouble he was causing.
That's hilarious.
So, yeah.
That's so funny.
And his name is so freaking generic that like every once in a blue moon I'll be like, can I look him up everywhere?
You can't even find him?
No, because it's such a generic name.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Virgil?
Yep, Virgil Wilson.
What a dick.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's dead.
I mean, if he kept up, I don't think he made it through high school either. Like I think he dropped out.
Yeah.
Because
that sounds accurate.
He just must have been massive trouble. And just academics wasn't his thing.
So you went through the same like high school, like it was like.
Yeah, there was only one high school in my hometown.
Oh, okay.
So we all, knew each other. There were 4 elementary schools, and then we all went into one junior high, one high school. So I would have known if he continued.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
We should go find him.
And kick his ass.
Kick both shins.
Okay, let's do it, Amy.
I'll do it.
I'm down. I know you will.
I don't like that.
All right, you ready for your question?
Yeah.
All right. Amy, the worst dinner party I've ever attended.
Dinner party, let's see. Okay. Do family events count?
It's open-ended. Question is, do you want to out the family?
No, I do this. Actually, I do it. I have a joke about the situation, but I think it's not really a dinner party. Well, we had dinner, but it was one of my best friends. It was her wedding reception. It was so fun though, but it was like bad. But like, I remember drinking out of a vase for sure, and there had been flowers in there, but there weren't anymore. But my friends in college, this was my longest friend though, Sarah. We've been friends since like 4th grade. We're still very good friends, but we're just a wild group and we partied all the time. And one of my friends, Dave, my whole family was at the wedding too, because Sarah, we, since 4th grade, we're all close. And this guy, Dave, who was at the wedding with me, he fell into a 40-gallon trash can, like ass first, like,
oh my God.
His body was like folded over into itself. we had to dump out the trash. We had to dump the trash can over on its side to like pull him out because he couldn't get out. My mom is just like, "What the fuck is wrong with your friend?" I'm like, I don't know. He's been in a trash can before for sure though. Like it was just like everything. It was just, we should not have been allowed at a wedding. Like, but they're still married and very happy. They're one of my few friends that got married that are still married. Yeah. So, maybe the more wild you are when you're young, the better, I think, because you get it all out. Yeah. And you don't have like that itch to be like, oh, I missed everything, but we did not miss a thing. It was just they used to call our group the black hole in college because like when people from other groups would join us like for a night out, they would just like never go back to their friends after that. They would just stay with our group because we were fun. Yeah. Like just wild. Yeah. Nice. We were that same group. We were at a college party one night and my friend Jess, she was on her way to the party, but she got arrested on the way for a DUI. And And her one phone call, she called the party. So she called the party and let us know that she was arrested. And we're like, oh, okay. And I'm so sorry. And then so we passed a hat around the party for bail or whatever. And we sent like the most sober person, our friend Sarah, to go get her. Different Sarah. And like a half hour later, Sarah called the party as well. She goes, I got arrested too.
Oh, shit.
So we passed another hat around the party. We sent the most next sober. I was like, oh God, that was Deborah Rowe. And then she, Rowe is what she goes by. And so she goes there and she tries to bail them both out. They're like, okay. Sarah got arrested because she had like $500 in outstanding parking tickets. But this was like Lawrence, Kansas, and parking tickets at the time were $2.
Oh, God.
We're like, what? What did you do?
Jeez.
But she worked like that. I don't know. But anyway, so she got arrested. So now we have 2 friends in jail. We sent the next person, Roe, and then she was like, the cops were like, all right, so yeah, you can bail them out, but you only have enough money for one. Who do you want? And she could hear them. And Jess, the first girl to get arrested, is just screaming. It's like, you fucking pigs, I'm leaving. I'm fucking getting out of here. My friends are bailing me out. Fuck you.
Oh, my God.
And then Sarah's like, why is this happening to me? So she's like, I'll take the crier, you know. And
Oh,
we
my
just
God.
went back to the party. And Jess had to stay in jail for the night because we didn't have any more money. Like, we're college kids.
Wow,
So yeah, that's like the black hole. That was our group. It was. We're so stupid. I think we've all been arrested. Every single one of us.
Well,
there's no way that not. Yeah, every one of us. So.
it's good to have, something that unifies.
Yeah. Our yearbooks are just our mugshots. Yeah.
Right.
It's wild.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. Well, that didn't sound like the worst.
No,
Stuff. That
fun.
sounded like the most hilarious.
Yeah. It's just like at the time you're like, oh no.
Yeah, what's going on?
Our friends are all in jail. Who are we gonna party with?
Okay, so let's go back to New York.
Yeah.
And you're performing, learning how to write differently, and I would imagine that by this time, because if I Google your name, like it's nonstop New York stuff. So you're getting booked a ton and you're performing a ton. And you're also, and I'm just going to draw a correlation here. I also, and I mentioned it in the intro, you were on Ari Shafir's podcast. Mm-hmm. So that means to me, I translate that, okay, you're in with that whole Skankfest crowd, which is like this beast of like a comedic force.
Yeah.
And you seem like you would fit right in with that whole, ball busting. We're going to just say whatever comes off our
New York Civic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's like, Skankfest, it's such I've done it, I think, every year, but it's because Rebecca Trent is she's a good friend of mine, and she's the owner of the Creek in the Cave, mm-hmm. which used to be in LIC in Queens, Long Island City. And Skankfest started there. The first one was at Creek, like 7 or 8 years ago. And
that seems so quaint.
It was so small.
Yeah.
It was so small and fun. Yeah. And just like a baby fest is what it was. And to watch how it's grown and developed over the years has been, just incredible. And Christine and Rebecca and Lewis have just done, a great job with cultivating that and making it an environment that people really flock to every year. Ari, I love Ari. I think that he's one of the funniest people I've ever met, and he's also like a very generous person when it comes to sharing his time and thoughts and opinions and advice for comics that aren't as experienced as him. And he is very giving in that way, and he'll promote you. He pumps up comics all the time, and his joke writing is just insane. Like it's phenomenal. It's something that I've like admired for a very long time with him. So when he asked me to do Skeptic Tank, I was like, does he have the wrong person? Like, that's so cool. And yeah, we had a great time on that. It was fun to be able to sit down with him and just like talk shop and talk about like education in a way that he had never really, I guess, heard of it before, because, you know, two Jews growing up as Jews, we were like, it's different. But he has this like yearning to learn about people, and he's, when you talk to him, he's very centered on you, and it's nice. Yeah. I like it. Yeah. Yeah. But all those guys, pretty nice guys. I think that what they say on stage they're jokes, but people will be like, absolutely not. You're like, why? It's funny. And they're like, it's not, you can't joke about this or you can't joke about that. And I think those, being like in that environment has kind of taught me you can almost joke about anything if it's funnier than it is offensive, you know? I think that's kind of the rule. I think I told Lewis, he has like one of the only Jewish jokes that I've been like, oh, it's pretty good, you know, but coming from a goy, but I'm like, oh, not bad, but like, because it's original and it's its own thought, but most comics don't get that far, and so like, I think that's the way New York does kind of challenge you. It's like to think outside of the box and really like discover your voice in comedy and how you want it to be like standing out differently from other people. So. Yeah.
I have a very weird memory of Ari that I don't think I've ever talked about. Magical moment for me is going to the Comedy Store in LA for the first time and staying through all the way to the end, because I didn't know better. I didn't know that people would just, the audience would just hop in for a couple of the main acts, the middle acts, and then bounce. To me, you stay for the whole thing. So Stephen Brody Stevens had the Sam Kinison spot. So I'm sitting there, watching him, which was like, amazing to watch. Yeah. But I'm one of 8 people left in the audience. And because I'm such a comedy fan, I was in the front row. So, of course, I was going to get talked to. And he was very nice. We talked about Moon Tower and how he really wanted to get back to Moon Tower. And, very sad that he never did get to come back. Yeah. But during, like, the last 30 minutes, Ari, and I don't know who else was back there because it's also dark, but he kept talking to Ari. And just Ari was like, okay, all right, Brody, sure. And like, he was goading him without saying much of anything. And it was just like, oh my God, is that Ari Shaffir? Because back then, Ari hadn't gotten himself in hot water as many times as he has since. Oh, yeah. So for me, like, it was like, oh my God, it's Ari Shaffir.
Yeah, he's a poke the bear personality for sure.
Yeah. But, so I think he was definitely poking.
Yeah, he's like, you're like, don't touch the stove, it's hot. He's like, I'll tell you if it's hot. So it's, but those types of people, I kind of flock towards them because I'm the same way. And it's just like, I just like, you have to find out for yourself and do all of that. I could do it better. I could do it. Like, oh, it is hot. Yeah. But he's great.
Yeah. So if it hadn't been for your shitty landlord and your terrible apartment situation, and if it hadn't been for the lockdown, do you think you would have given Austin much of a attention? Okay.
No. No, I don't think I would have, only because like right before the lockdown, like things were just, I think for almost everybody in New York, I'm like the level that I was on, things were just really starting to pick up and roll for all of us. Yeah. When it came to like, TV and spots and like starting to like really get a little bit bigger, and then the pandemic happened, and then it was like everything was just shut down immediately. And so all of those wheels that were turning just weren't turning anymore. And I was locked in my basement apartment for a year with this dog that I had just started fostering. And then I was like, well, I guess I got a dog. Because who's going to, take them during the pandemic, which it turns out everyone took dogs during the pandemic,
Yes,
and then gave them back like
Yeah.
rich assholes. And so, I hated those people. But yeah, so like a year in, we didn't know it was going to last that long. And in New York, it was just a different monster, COVID was, because in places like like here in Austin, it was just, you guys have more space, and so things weren't shut down as much.
It's not the space.
I meant in your head, like in the
It was the political environment. Let's just call a spade a
100%.
spade. Yeah.
It was very irresponsible, grossly irresponsible, I would say, and probably contributed to many deaths. But they don't believe that down here, so it was just a cold that they died from.
Right.
So yeah, I get. But in New York, it was more like, I think if
Rooftop shows.
Yeah, it was rooftop shows. I did so many at New York Comedy Club, which is my home club there. We did rooftop shows every single night, like, because there was, or park shows where you're just like, God, those are the worst. You're like, trying to host a show, and there's just a kid riding his tricycle a circle around you. You're like, get the fuck away from me. You're like, why are you here? You're like, my parents were here. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, it was brutal.
Yeah.
It was a brutal time, but there was also like a lot of fun stuff that went with it. Michael Che was running a show like for a little while, a couple months probably, off the back of a old like Dodge pickup truck, like in a parking lot. And it was so much fun, and people would just come out. We would draw like 6-foot circles on the parking lot floor for like the space, and then people would just come and watch, and it kind of did build an alternative sense of community. These park shows and rooftop shows and parking lot shows, but it just gets to a point where you're like, I need comedy, like I need to do real shows, or I just need a little bit more. I can't. Or we would do Zoom shows, and those were just a different level of hell.
Yeah.
Because people would hack them and like put porn on. Like, man, that was a better joke than I was gonna tell. So you're like, can't even get into it, and then people are just like staring at you and not smiling. You're like, ugh. And then, even if it's a good environment, as soon as you hang up the Zoom call and look around, you're like, oh, I'm alone. Like, this is horrible. So that's why the Creek closed in New York and reopened in Austin. And, I just started coming down here. I bought a car and just started going on road trips and and it was a little bit more free at the time. So I was doing like more shows, and I would do like just tour along the way down to Austin and back up. And it wasn't bad. I liked it, and that's how I kind of grew to love Austin. And I really never would have, I think, even thought about it if it hadn't been for COVID. But I'm glad that I was able to find like comedy in this city, because it really, at the time in New York, like, and going, I think everyone that did COVID in New York has like some pretty bad PTSD from it, probably, because like watching the news and stuff, and you're seeing all these dead bodies piled up, like, and we were out of like fridge and freezer space, and it was winter, so they're putting bodies outside along the lakes or along the water, and it's just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it's like Black Plague situation. You're like, this is really insane. And so getting out of that was, I think I just needed it.
Yeah.
Because living alone, especially during that time, was like very lonely, because people were just like not out at all. In my life, I was used to being out every single night, socializing all the time, being in front of crowds, and then for it to stop, it was just like, really, it was difficult. And so I was grateful for the Austin scene. And when I came down here and this scene was kind of starting anew, I guess it's like, was kind of split into two scenes. It still kind of is, I think. Yeah. but the growth that I've seen in the people that I've worked with have been just like wanting comedy, wanting to grow, wanting to learn, wanting to do as much as they can. And it was really refreshing because in New York, you can tend to get a little bit more bitter about stuff and like you're grinding every single night and things just are slow to happen and you just want things to happen. And in Austin, things just kind of seem to be happening, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunities that I got here took me back to New York to do stuff. I did the New York Comedy Fest from like a thing that I did here, like an audition here brought me there. And then Comedy Records, which is who I did my album through, saw me at Caroline's, approached me there. And so it's like, for a while, I was like, I don't know which city I want to be in because I get stuff in both, and both lead me to each other. And so it was just kind of like confusing to make that choice. But then my apartment got just demolished.
Yeah,
so I was like, oh, well, fuck.
That's the choice.
Guess it'll be Austin for a little bit. So.
Yeah. And now that everything is wide open again, you're splitting your time still?
I'm still, well, no, I'm still, because I had to give up my place. And so I don't have a place in New York right now. So once I can, you know, maybe find that, I'll probably start splitting my time again. Yeah, I do. I really like being in both cities, and it's just, there's so many benefits to being in each that I don't really want to give it up.
Yeah. So we talked about when you moved to New York, how you changed your writing. You learned that you needed to trim the fat in order to be effective on stage. What do you think you've learned by the move to Austin?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that comedy is very different in Austin than New York, for sure. In a way that is both good and bad, I think. I think in Austin, what I've learned is like you need to like ingratiate yourself to the crowd a little bit more. Like in the Midwest, just in general, for them to be like, yeah, we'll listen to your Jew jokes. We don't like you, but we'll listen. It's like, all right. But yeah, I think that like I had to slow down. For sure, because in New York, like the people that are at the shows are there for the jokes. So you get out there, you get right into it, and it's just like go, and it's fast and it's fast paced, and you talk faster there because it's New York. And here I've learned to like that I need to like slow down a little bit, give jokes some space to breathe, and then and get to know the crowd. Really here likes to be talked to. So giving them like that part of, or that side of me, I guess, is something that I hadn't done as much in New York, but I definitely do more here.
And when you say talk to, are you talking crowd work, or are you talking that whole concept of they need a little bit of time to warm up to me?
Both kind of. Crowd work, I think, is how a crowd warms up to me. And I love doing crowd work because it's I like learning about people too, and like I like people to feel comfortable. I know that a lot of my material is difficult to hear sometimes or write about, because I do talk about school shootings, and I talk about the system, you know, for education. I talk about being Jewish, and I talk about, you know, the problem with fuckboys, and a lot of people kind of take more offense to it here than they do in New York, because I think they're looking at it more as me as opposed to the jokes that I'm writing. Like they don't separate themselves. They don't separate the two as much. And I don't know. I like getting to know the crowd for sure here and in New York, I guess. But the crowd work aspect, I think that is what helps me and helps the audience feel closer to me too, because it's an important thing to do, crowd work. Sometimes, you know, especially if it's a longer set, because to just go in and just start jokes right off the bat here, it just really, in my experience, doesn't work. And I think that sometimes it is due to the nature of the stuff that I talk about, because it is hard to hear about kids getting shot.
Yeah.
But that's also a reality that I think if people don't start bringing up in a way that like, and I joke about it, but it's also like, and people have been upset with me. You're talking about shooting kids, and you're talking about this and that, but I think comedy is more impactful and memorable than just a regular speech. And so to get out like the stuff that kind of needs to be said to people is important. And the school district and the government, no one's going to do anything about guns anyway. No one's going to do anything about violence in the schools, and no one's going to do anything about school shootings except for the people on the ground, and that's us, and that's the students, and that's parents and teachers. Mm-hmm. And so I think that it's like, for people to get offended by it with somebody who has a lot of experience in that is, in my opinion, insanely narrow-minded, because they usually have no clue what they're talking about. You know, they're like, let the police handle it. You're like, well, the police sit in their cars during the shooting, so maybe not, you know, maybe the teachers do need to handle the situations and be trained for all of that stuff. But like, and I'll talk about, there was a shooting in my school, and I talk about it on stage. It wasn't like a guy came in and went to the library and started shooting stuff up. It was outside with a huge fight, and just boom, 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 just huge. And the whole school was out there. And so it's like, when I talk about it, people have in the past gone, oh, well, but that's inner city. And it's like, what's wrong with you?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's a bit insane, in my opinion. And so I think that people do need to hear perspective. And I think perspective comes out more in comedy, and it's more memorable when you can at least find a little bit of humor or laugh about it. Yeah. And it's not like school shootings are hilarious or funny, but to be able to talk about it in a way that is memorable, I think is more important.
Yeah.
And I think coming from a teacher's perspective or somebody that's been in it is more impactful, I would hope, than just like some random dude doing a school shooting joke, you know?
Well, I was going to go back to the example that you said about how Ari, you know, if you could tell him the stove is hot and he's just going to put his hand right there.
Yeah.
You're a lifelong writer, and you are equipped, and not only equipped from your background, but also you've been doing comedy long enough and writing comedy long enough that in your hands, the topic can be brought to the stage in a way that should make people think. And maybe when they walk away, they're like, oh, yeah, our society really is fucked up.
Yeah.
That we let this happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a joke about arming teachers and how stupid it is. That's like, we didn't get into education to shoot people. That's insanity. Like, and now you want to put guns in our hands? Yeah. Like, are you out of your mind? Yeah. Teachers are crazy. Have you met your art teacher, your gym teacher? They're insane
Mrs. Ellis,
people.
what would she have done?
They're insane. Yeah, I would have been shot as a student, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like...
Yeah. But to wrap up my thought is, I don't want an open micer with a year and a half of experience to do a joke like that. They're not equipped. Yeah. They may not have the background and insight that you do, A, but B, they haven't been at this long enough that they can do it in a way that is funny, but also thought-provoking.
Yeah.
It's just going to be crass.
Yeah, because, it's the writing experience, it's the stage experience, it's being able to figure out how to work a crowd when maybe somebody yells out, like, fuck you, or shut the fuck up, like, this isn't something to joke about, and it's like, no, I can joke about this. You don't have to listen, that's for sure, but, like, you know, if you don't think that you can joke about it, maybe we should make better rules so that it doesn't happen anymore, I don't know. Like, but that is a good point that you bring up with like being not ready to tell, or to talk about certain material and not having the skills to do that yet, because I still have jokes that I'm like, I'm not or like situations that I would love to talk about on stage that I'm just like not ready to talk about yet, or don't have like the direction that I've been thinking about for 10 years, you know, and I'm like, I don't even know how to bring this to a stage really. Yeah. And so to be a 1-year comic that's like, I'm gonna tackle gun control. Like, are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say from the side of the audience, there have been times as an audience member where something like deeply personal has been happening in my life, and I hear a comic who otherwise would be perfectly fine, and they'll touch on something, and it does wreck me.
Yeah.
But I'm never going to come up to the comic afterward and say, you can't talk about this on stage.
Right. It's
But it's like a two-way street where, you're working at talking about something that's difficult, but you never know who your audience is, that they might be going something, you know, that touches so close to the nerve when you bring up that topic.
Right.
That they can't hear the words that you've crafted and spent years putting together.
That's true. It's very true. I was doing that school shooting joke about army teachers in Brooklyn, and a guy in the crowd was like visibly upset, but I also saw their friends rolling their eyes, and so I was like, okay. And so I called him like, hey buddy, you don't seem happy about this joke. He goes, well, some of us were in school shootings.
Yeah.
And his friends go, no, you weren't. They go, you were at lunch with your mom when there was a shooting at your college.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh, poor kid.
Jeez.
That hurts. Yeah. You know, you want to just claim that fame so bad. But I was like, oh, man.
That's a whole other.
It's a whole other thing, right?
Yeah.
I've been in it too. So I'm like, yeah, I've been in a shooting. Also, you think that I'm not allowed to talk about my stuff? Like that's, to me, if you don't like the joke, there's got to be another one in 2 minutes. So, and I get that, like, jokes can definitely, like, the material can be triggering. You know, people talk about murder and rape and sexual assault and gun control. And they are very hot button issues, especially in America. But, like, to expect a comic or to tell a comic, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that. Well, no, you don't have to listen to it. Like you not listening will tell me what to talk about. You know, it's going to be much better than an audience member screaming out, fuck you, don't talk about this. Because all that's going to happen is it's going to be a clip that goes on the internet and they're going to continue to do the joke. It's just not an effective way to communicate, I don't think, with heckling. But like, I think if somebody were to come up to me after a set and say, I'd like to share my experience with you, I'd be much more open to listening, and I might take out a line or change it so that it makes people less triggered, I would say. But I wouldn't take out a line to make people feel more comfortable with the topic.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
Because I would argue don't change it at all. Just be mindful, or not mindful, but just be aware of the power of your words.
Yeah, I think that the power of words is more than people realize, honestly. Yeah. Because, like, when you think back to situations in your life, you're really, unless you got, you know, the shit kicked out of your shin or, you know, very severely beaten, you're going to think about what people have said to you. Yeah. More than what they've done. But you'll think about, oh, they said this and then they did that. Like, you know, so the words, I think words are much more impactful long term. Yeah. In my opinion, but I don't know. I think that if I knew a joke was causing people pain, I would rethink the joke a little bit, because I don't go on stage to make people feel bad. You know, I want them to laugh. I want them to be happy when they leave. Yeah. So if a joke is consistently, you know, maybe making even like one person in each crowd just be like, fuck you. You're like, nah, maybe I should figure it out. I don't want...
That's fair feedback.
I mean, unless they're like, just like, you know, horrible people that... But you can tell. You can definitely tell. Yeah.
You can tell
when someone's sincere versus like, nah. Yeah. It's So, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, thank you for going into that deep dive, because not a lot of people are willing to talk about, you know, when they bring hot button issues on stage and how to deal with that and what's
Yeah.
the right way, wrong way. I mean, I have my rules. It's don't be
Right.
an open micer tackling these topics because you're just going to get blowback.
Right.
Work on it, work on it, work on it until you can get to the point where it's a joke, so it serves its primary purpose.
Yeah.
But it's
yeah.
around a topic that can be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be funnier than offensive.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, and,
Although,
and a lot of people are like, don't get that.
Yeah.
Like, especially newer writers and newer comics. They're like, no, I'm just going to go. And the thing I have noticed in Austin that I don't love about that is that this scene is very much an anything goes scene, and it's rewarded, which is good, but it's also bad because then you get people that their punchlines are, you're gay. It's like, what are you doing? It's not a punchline. That's not even a tag. Like it just gets like.
And this is why we get into the discussions about
Yeah.
it's two scenes, because the scene before didn't punch down, and the scene now is like anything goes, and punching down is cool, and
kind of them taking over a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm noticing, which I don't. Yeah, I think that I don't know. I really like smart writing, and that's a skill that you have to work on, but you have to work on it.
yeah.
And
But it's all part of the training process. You're going to
Yeah.
write those terrible jokes your first few
100%.
years, and then you're going to figure out, oh, I'm alienating my audiences.
Yeah.
And if
I
I
think
really want
that-
to do this.
yeah, and I think a thing that a lot of newer comics don't pay attention to is who is laughing.
Yes.
You know, are you
Don't
getting
write for the back of the room.
back of the room laughs? You're like, oh, you're just the
your
comics
friends.
aren't going to be your audience.
Yeah.
You know, I hope
Yeah.
you want a real audience.
Right.
Like, so you should start writing for
Yeah.
a crowd that at least refine. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's but that all takes time and to learn that. But you do need to learn that. Like you have to keep an open mind to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. And that's the distinction that you have over the new comics is when you went into it, you already had well established who Amy was.
Yeah.
And so you didn't
Yeah.
have to go through that,
No.
that process.
And I mean, I know I've said stuff on stage that's offensive. I know that I've walked off stage and been like, man, I wish I hadn't acted like that or gotten, you know, like sometimes you just get hot-headed or you go after an audience member who is heckling because you just want to
Yeah.
get through your joke.
Yeah.
And you're like, damn, I wish I had handled that better or said something different.
Yeah.
But like, it's all experience related. And so getting up as much as you can, that's why it's so important to be, and not just getting up as much as you can, but getting up in front of crowds and getting up in front of different crowds. Like that was the benefit, I think, of going on tour is that I knew my stuff worked in New York, I knew my
Yeah.
stuff worked in Chicago, and I knew it worked in LA, but those are three very big cities. So you have to take it to smaller towns, you have to take your stuff to smaller cities too and see if it works there. And like if it doesn't, you have to make changes because that's the majority of America, and those are the people that are going to be listening. Those are the people that go on longer drives, like, and are, you know,
Yeah.
that they want the podcast, they want the albums, and so it has to be appealing to them too. Like,
Right.
comedy's not just for you; it's for everyone. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Amy, I wish we could talk forever and ever because we haven't even gotten to the lead up to your album recording and then the release. But I have to be.
I get it totally.
We might need to do a part 2. Before we wrap up, is there something that you feel like you want to share with our listeners?
Oh, like project wise, or like
Well, you're going to have a chance to do your like full on promo, but is there something that we haven't talked about that you really wanted to talk about?
I don't know. No, just do the things that make you happy because life sucks. Otherwise, you know, if you're in a job you don't like, figure out if you can leave or figure out what else you can do to make you happier because, like, I don't know, life's just so short and you don't get a lot of them. Lives.
Yeah.
Unless you want them, I guess. I don't know if you believe in reincarnation, but like, I think that that people get really bogged down with the day-to-day stuff and they ignore their needs for to make them happy, you know? And I did that for a long time, and it's just not a life I would want to live. Like, I don't want to look back on my life and say, what do I regret? You know, I want to say, oh, what did I do that was so exciting, and have a huge list. Yeah. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay.
Is that weird? No, sorry.
I want to ask you this because it is such a big part of you that you spent 13 years in a profession you didn't ultimately love. How do you think you would be different as a comic if you had gotten the start in your early 20s?
If I didn't teach?
Yeah.
I was very shy growing up.
Wow.
Extremely shy. Like my third grade teacher was like, you have to put her in like a acting class or something, like, because she does not talk.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I think that, like, I forgot the question.
Do you think you'd be very different as a comic if you had started sooner, not gone through that being in a profession?
Yeah, I think I would be very different as just content-wise alone. I think I would be different, but like, I was shy, but I always liked attention. You know, like so I think that I would still have found comedy. I think that it would have taken me longer to find my voice, for sure, which isn't surprising in your 20s. That's all you're kind of trying to do is figure out who you are. Yeah. But I do think it would have taken me much longer to be comfortable on stage, to be comfortable with material, to understand like what I can and can't talk about successfully and how to do that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I have my teaching background, and I'm glad that I taught for a while. I wish I had not stayed for as long as I had, but I didn't really find comedy, honestly, until I found it. And so I think if I had taught for probably 5-6 years, I don't think that I would have any different opinion on it than me staying for the 13 that I stayed for. I think that my opinions would still be the same because it was, you know, the same shit, different schools. And yeah, I don't know. I do wish I had started earlier, for sure, but I don't regret teaching. I just wish I hadn't done it as long.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was such a rambled answer.
It's fine.
I went all over the place.
I'm going to get you real narrow focused here with my closing question, which is one word to describe your future.
Fuck. One word to describe my future is, can I hyphenate it?
There's no official rule book to this.
Successfully large. That's what I want.
That works. That works. All right. Well, that is a wrap on Comedy Wham Presents Amy Shanker. Amy, tell us where we can find you on social media and promote your projects.
Oh, I'm on Amy Shanker, Shanker, everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, dating sites. And I run 2 shows here in Austin. Both are on Sundays. One is the Austin Comedy Show. It's every single Sunday at 7 o'clock at High Sign Brewery over off of 7th. And it's a really, really fun show. And then I started this it was supposed to start as a show, but then the pandemic happened, so I turned it into a podcast. It's called The Most Expensive Joke, and it's about the situations that have cost comics the most in life, whether it's mental health or relationships, divorce, money, literally anything, just what cost you the most in your life in kind of a negative way, and what joke did you write about it? So they do the joke, and then we talk about like all the behind the scenes details of the situation, and which I thought of because I got arrested at LaGuardia Airport a while ago.
Oh my
and
God.
it cost around $5,000. That was
Jeez.
at the time my most expensive joke, and I wanted to hear other people's. So I turned that into a podcast, and now it's a show here at Creek in the Cave every first and third Sunday at 6 p.m. And the next one's going to be when does this come out?
This is coming out the 19th, so next weekend.
On Sunday? Oh, that's when the show is. Put it out early. Come to my show today. Creek in the Cave at 6.
Listen, then
It's
get
a
to the
hot
show.
one. Yeah, it's but it's kind of more, they come out, they do their joke, and then we talk about the situation and then open it up to the crowd for questions.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah.
Wow.
And the first one we did, this dude got so mad because he brought his parents, and a lot of the material was like very racy, and he one-starred us, and then he goes, and then they were just asking questions to the audience they were asking the audience for questions. I'm like, no, it's a Q&A. What's the matter with you? It's like, he was so upset.
Oh my gosh.
But his parents were giggling, and he was just crossed. His arms were crossed the whole time. So repressed. But 1 star from him, but the others seemed to like it.
That's good. All right. Well, we hope you've enjoyed learning about how Amy got to be the comedic genius that you heard today, just as much as I have. This has been Comedy Wham Presents Amy Shanker. I'm Valerie, and that's been funny. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. We never talked about Chicago.
I know, we never did. Oh,
Next
wow.
time.